Hello and welcome to the Welsh Mountain Zoo, the National Zoo of Wales. I invite you to discover and learn all about our diverse animals. Where do they come from? What do they eat? How are they cared for? What's life like for animals in the wild? Presenting an alternative insight into the lives of our animals, a chance to get to know the keepers who care for them. We'll be making sure that you're clued in on what there is to see, as well as offering a fresh perspective of the creatures up close and personal. You have the inside track of the amazing work that is being done. Prepare for your ultimate visual guide to the zoo.
Well, my name's Caroline. I've been a keeper here at the Welsh Mountain Zoo for the last 4.5 years, and one of the species that I work with here are the Californian sea lions. Well, Californian sea lions are from the west coast of North America, the south of Alaska, all the way down to Mexico, and including the Gulf of California as well. So they have quite a wide range along that coast. Well, my interactions with the animals are actually quite substantial because I'm a trainer as well. So we train our felines for husbandry behaviours, and husbandry behaviours are health checks primarily. So we'll be checking their flippers and checking their eyes and their ears and their mouths. So my interaction is really quite hands-on with them because they learn very similar to the way that dogs learn in that way. So we use positive reinforcement techniques. We give them lots of treats when they do something correct, and we use that. So they get a lot of enjoyment from that too. And I think it just helps us keep them happier and healthier in the long run because we can keep on top of illnesses as they arise. Well, we feed them primarily Baltic herring. They love it, but in the wild they can have all sorts of different types, crustaceans and squid. Lots of different types of small fish mainly, and we'll supplement their diet with different types of fish as well. But particularly with our sea lions, they are very engaging animals, so they do keep you on your toes and keep you guessing all the time. And Rooney in particular is possibly the most flatulent animal I've ever encountered. And during one of the displays, I was demonstrating how we check the hind flippers. I had both of the hind flippers in my hands when she let out a massive fart, and it was so loud that the microphone picked it up and the whole audience could hear it as well. So, and the smell lasted a little bit longer as well. So I find those sorts of stories particularly good. They are very social animals anyway. In the wild, the males can have a harem of up to 15 females that they'll breed with during that breeding season. And in captivity, it is very similar as well. So we have 3 females to 1 male, and when he's fully grown, at the moment he's a juvenile, so he's not really establishing much of a territory, but when he's older then he will be boss of the group, and the girls will have to follow suit. He hasn't quite reached the stage where breeding will be 100% guaranteed yet, but hopefully, fingers crossed, when Casper comes of age he'll be providing us with some lovely pups.
Red pandas come from the forests of the Himalayan mountains, found across India, China, Bhutan and Nepal.
We've got the Chinese species, so they come from the Chinese side of the Himalayas, and out in the wild they eat mainly bamboo.
There's been a lot of debate to the classification of red pandas over the years, as scientists look deeper into their genes, drawing new conclusions.
But I think at the moment they're in their own family, but they're allied to the raccoon and the mustelid family.
The red pandas use their tongue to taste the air much the same way that snakes do. They rely on a sense of taste in this way to communicate with one another and to navigate the forests. Here we can see them marking their territory with their scent glands.
When we go in there to either clean the beds, to put the food in, or just to generally tidy the enclosure, the male will stay up in the tree and he'll watch what we're doing. I mean, he's curious, but he won't come down and see what we're doing. Whereas the female, she's more curious, and she'll come down and she'll take bamboo off you if you're in there with bamboo. But I mean, she'll also come down as soon as you've put the food dish in there. So she'll get within a couple of foot of you, so she's not too bothered by your presence in the enclosure, which is quite nice.
They often stand on their hind legs to make themselves larger and more intimidating.
Pandas are endangered in the wilds due to habitat loss.
Deforestation as a result of woodland being transformed into terraced rice fields is partly responsible for destroying the panda's natural habitat. They are also hunted in the wild by large predators, such as the clouded leopard, as well as human beings.
People will still poach them, they'll make hats out of them, and I think at one point in time they use their tails as sort of like feather dusters.
Female red pandas are only receptive for a single day of the year, making breeding in the wild difficult. After successful copulation and a 5-month pregnancy, red panda cubs are born. However, they have a hard time growing up, often not reaching 1 year of age. In light of this, our red pandas are part of a global breeding program as an effort to conserve this endangered species. With our help, it's hoped that red pandas can be saved from the threat of extinction. Enter the exotic world of the reptile house, where you'll find slithering snakes, such as the Burmese python and the boa constrictor. You can see the terrapins and the snapping turtles splashing in their pool.
Well, we do have a heating system in place. The heating runs through all the enclosures, so which keeps the temperature all the time.
Across from them is a vivarium full of active tortoises. So what's the difference between turtles, terrapins and tortoises? Well, they have a few things in common. They're all members of the Chelonian order. This comes from the Greek word chelon, which means interlocking shields, or armor. Of course, there's a referring to their tough shells which protect them from harm. Tortoises spend the vast majority of their time on land and will only occasionally submerge themselves in water to drink or clean. Turtles, on the other hand, spend most of their time in the water, with some species only coming on land to lay eggs. You can see the zoo's snapping turtle hiding in the deep end of the pool. Terrapins is a word used to describe semi-aquatic turtles. They divide their time between living on land and swimming in the water. They can be found in exotic marshy areas. The Burmese python is the reptile house's biggest snake, and also one of the 5 largest species of snake in the world.
As I said, yeah, it takes 5 people to carry the Burmese, and unfortunately I used to be able to lift her myself. I now can't. She's got so big since I've been here over the 6 years that I can't lift her myself. Probably about 5 foot since I've been here, I'd say, because she's roughly, let's say, 16 foot now. She needs measuring again.
Aside the red pandas are the Asian short-clawed otters. While the European otter lives a relatively solitary life, Asian otters march around in large group, as you can see for yourself in the Himalayan terrace.
The oriental ones that we've got, they do live in family groups in the wild. We've got 6 down there in the new enclosure.
Expect a lot of hustle and bustle from these curious critters.
Yeah, they just put around the enclosure, just up to no good. I mean, in the wild they live in marshes, slow-moving streams, slow-moving riverbeds, and they'll spend the majority of the day foraging for food, looking under stones and any sort of like holes or cracks they can find. They're known as halts because they'll either be in rock crevices, they'll either be under sort of like tree roots or in a bank.
They often go and explore through their stream. Sumatran tigers. Sumatran tigers come from the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. These big cats have distinguishing features which help tell them apart from other species of tiger, for example, their white beard. Smaller than any other tiger, they can move through the trees easily. Their stripes are closer together than other tigers, which assists with camouflage, helping them to remain hidden in the shadows of the forest. They have white spots on the back of their ears. The purpose of these is to fool prey into thinking that these white spots are their eyes, that they are looking in the opposite direction. These are simply called eye spots. Eyes on the back of their head, not a bad feature to have. In the wild, there will be a solitary dominant male tiger, which controls a territory in which there is a number of females. They mark their territory with their scent on trees and bushes. Like other subspecies of tiger, Sumatran tigers are critically endangered. The main reasons for this are habitat loss, prey depletion, poaching for their highly coveted fur, and bones for illegal traditional medicine. There is also a problem of the human-tiger conflict, with tigers attacking villagers' livestock and a resultant retaliation from farmers. Over the last 25 years, the population has been cut in half, with only around 500 to 600 or fewer left in the wild. There needs to be more awareness of the fact that the threat of losing these tigers is very real. The zoo has a growing flock of Chilean flamingos. These flamboyant pink birds are famous for their vibrant color and stalk legs. They are native to more exotic continents.
Africa and America, so yeah, across the two main continents, and they do migrate across, so you do get them tip up at Spain and stuff occasionally on the way, so yeah.
Juvenile flamingos and chicks sport a grey colour, which they have until they obtain their full pink plumage. Breeding them is hard work, and managed by Simon, who's kind enough to tell us about his role when bringing them up.
I suppose I am parent for them when they're chicks, so it's my job to make sure they've got enough food to sustain life and to help them sort of wean themselves off so they can be independent on their own. The flocking instincts in flamingos is quite naturally high, so mixing them into the group's not too much of a difficulty. Once they're down here at the flock, wing management's quite a big part of my job. Quite a lot of our birds are fully winged birds, which means they have to have a few feathers clipped every now and then to make sure that they don't fly off out the enclosure. So that's my general management of flamingos, and obviously trying to help make sure they've got the mud and stuff needed to make the nests in the summer, if and when they do.
In the wild, flamingos can be found in gigantic groups, which settle around lakes and other freshwater areas.
Yeah, there's some massive flocks, and sometimes they've just found a flock last year which nobody had even heard of, and there's some 15,000 birds in it. So it's just literally catching the migratory patterns. But you've got the likes of the Caribbean flamingos, that they're a bit more not so well off, and the Jamesons is the rarest. I don't think you can even see them in captivity in Britain anymore.
Ideally, flamingos will be able to rear their own young, however this currently isn't possible.
Also, flamingos specifically, we have a huge problem with predation of eggs from the gulls, because they'll come and take eggs, so I always swap the eggs. I have to get them as quick as possible because it can be in there half an hour and the gull comes and takes it and that's it gone.
You can see in the incubator, you see they've all got X's on the top.
Yeah.
And then you've got circles on the bottom. And that's so you know you've done a half turn.
when they first hatch, like I say, they're on water for the first feed, and then it's normally 2 weeks old before we start the exercise, because like I say, up until that point, when I've ever watched adult flamingos, the chick will be on a nest, a mud-made nest, that can be up to 2-3 foot off the ground. So they can't walk anywhere except for like a 6-inch diameter at the top of the nest. So it's only when they leave that, which is around 2 or 3 weeks old, that they start doing more walking then. Chicks from last year before last, Bullseye, which is PWN, one of the birds with the green Darvik ring behind us. He's called Bullseye because I took somebody up there for the first time to see him when he was the smallest chick, and he managed to poop on me from 4 foot away because it's quite projectile, because when they're small they're not up and about, they just sit on the nest for the first couple of weeks, so it's in their best interest to sort of squirt the poo away to keep their own nest site clean.
Splashing around outside is the Humboldt penguins. These little flightless birds love the water.
My name's Zoe Sweetman, and I am the head bird trainer and presenter here at Welsh Mountain Zoo. These Humboldt penguins here are from Chile and Peru. They get their name obviously from the very cold Humboldt Current that runs along the Chile and Peru coastline. Fish primarily, but in the wild they'll also eat other small things like crustaceans and squid as well. But here at the zoo we primarily feed them on Baltic herring.
When you think of penguins, you may automatically think of the birds braving the Antarctic winds. However, this is not entirely true for this species.
Well, these being a tropical species of penguin, they don't like the cold very much. It always surprises people. They tend to think that penguins love to be in all the chilly weather and all the ice and the snow, but it's not the case for these guys. We don't really have to make any special provisions for these though, other than just feed them lots of fish, make sure they have a really nice layer of blubber.
They have a nice soft layer of down feathers under their black and white ones, so that helps them keep warm in this type of weather as well.
These guys are colony birds obviously, but they do tend to stay in their pairs. Penguins are very sweet, they actually pair up for life, and they will go back to the same burrow with the same partner every single year to breed. And whilst they're here at the zoo, they defend that burrow against other members of the colony here. So even though we don't really have a strict hierarchy, they do defend their patch against the others when they form those breeding groups.
On weekends, you can see them march on their exciting penguin parade, an unmissable chance to get really close to these amazing birds.
Penguins are always quite cheeky as they're going to show off now. Obviously when we have them out on the parade they can be a little bit unpredictable. In particular one of our lovely boys, Shell, he's one of our hand-reared penguins here. He loves anything that's sort of like tassels. So if anybody's got a camera that's got something dangling down, he's straight over there trying to grab it off people, and he's always quite entertaining to watch. And we have a few as well that like to chase the seagulls as well, which is quite interesting, and occasionally get hold of them during the shows and there's a bit of a tussle, and it can get quite lively, but no, they are lovely. They've got big personalities, little birds.
Snow leopards are gorgeous big white cats. These cats can be sparsely found from the Himalayan region to the Siberian tundra, so they are distributed across Tibet, Mongolia and other parts of Central Asia.
And I've also got 4 snow leopards. I've got mum and dad, which are the breeding pair, and I've got 2 youngsters from last year, which are 8 months old. This is our first time that we've actually had the mum and dad snow leopard and the youngsters together. Once the youngsters get to 18 months old, they'll then go to 2 different zoos and start their own breeding groups. I mean, it's quite nice that Mum and Dad aren't bothered by still having the youngsters. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we might get some more snow leopard cubs this year. At the moment we're feeding them either horse meat or we're feeding them chicken, because they're the meats that we buy in. They can be given things like rabbits. We can buy rabbits in frozen, we can buy quail in, which we get as well. And with the mesh being the size of it is, they also get the wild stuff. They also catch birds like crows and magpies, and every so often you'll see like the remains of wild rabbits in there as well, which is quite cool, because it just means that even though they're born in captivity, they still know, or the instinct's still there to hunt wild food.
The fur trade is a large contributor to the reason they are endangered.
And what I suppose the farmers will do is, if they find one of their goats or sheep killed by what they think is a snow leopard, they'll set traps and then they'll go off hunting for the snow leopards, because at the end of the day, to them, the cattle or the sheep that have been killed loses them a lot of money. Whereas if they can capture and kill a snow leopard and sell it, they might get like 2 or 3 months' wage just from that. So there are things out there, but the main one would be sort of like education and talking to the farmers about trying to save these animals in the wild. So there's not really a dominancy in our snow leopards. I mean, yes, they have their squabbles and their fights. Sometimes the male wins and the female runs away, sometimes the female wins and the male runs away, so it just depends on the animals at the end of the day. It's all the same, they're just 10-15 times bigger than your domestic cat.
The Welsh Mountain Zoo's Seal Rescue Rehabilitation Programme works to save injured or abandoned grey and common seals who are in need of a helping hand. It can be hard to tell the difference between common and grey seals.
So I've got 3 in at the moment. One is a common seal, and they're not that common around this part of the country. You find them more up Scotland and down, so like Norfolk, South England way.
Common seals are smaller, growing to 1.7 metres with nostrils which meet at the bottom into a V shape. If you take a look, you might be able to see one swimming in the rehabilitation pool.
And then I've got 2 grey seals. Grey seals you can see off Angle C, you can see them off the 2 orms, the little orm and the big orm that we have over Llandudno way.
Grey seals are larger, growing to 2.5 metres. They also have parallel nostrils.
And when they're brought in for a variety of reasons. Some of the seals we've had in, they've been attacked by other seals, so they've got bite marks. Other ones that we've had in have been hit by jet skis, they've had propeller slash wounds in them. Other ones we've had in where there's been nothing wrong with them, it's just that members of the public have seen them lying on the beach without their mum, thinking they've been abandoned, and then they've picked them up and either brought them to us or taken them to the RSPCA. And when they come in, we start off by tube feeding them, and we tube feed them something that's called multi-milk, and this puts on the fat really quickly, just as their mother's milk would do. And then once they go from the multi-milk, once they've put on a couple of kilos and they're not as dehydrated as when they first came in, we then go on to force feeding them whole fish. And depending on how quick the seals learn, they either pick up eating whole fish themselves in a couple of weeks, or it can take a couple of months, so it does depend on the seals. Once the seals are eating on their own 3 times a day, anywhere between 10 and 40 fish from a dish, what we then do is we'll then put them out into our 2 pools that we've got out in the seal unit. The seals can then pick up on how to catch and eat fish.
Once they've regained their strength and are ready to survive on their own, the seals are carefully released back into the ocean from North Wales coastline. These 2 seals are being released from Penrhyn Bay.
We'll tend to their injuries, put the weight back on them, we'll give them a small tag in the back flipper, and then we will release them back into the wild. There are times when we've put the seals back out into the sea, and then the next thing we've seen them with fish like flatfish or sand eels, so it does work. It just gives them that second chance at life.